Hello, good morning. Let's talk about something about the firewall, type of firewall, and the placement of the firewall. So, there are a lot of the blogs which talk about the firewall, next generation firewall, zero trust security, all the modern technical jargons, right? But what I can share with my experience, a lot of the people still struggle with the placement of the firewall. The placement of the firewall and what type of a firewall we need to choose, okay, and how the traffic flows in the small data center or the data center or a small office which have some public hosting servers, internal servers, and internal user. So let's start with something. First of all, why we need in the firewall? So mostly we need a firewall when we have our communication from inside to outside, right? So when your network is isolated from the external world, in that case you really need a firewall. So the firewall comes in the picture when you're going out of your house or when someone is coming inside your house, right? So whenever there is a, but if you're living in a room, right, uh and no one is allowed going outside or coming inside, then in that case really we need a firewall. So but in the real practical scenario, we have some services, right? Why do we need network? We need a network to run the services or application. So we have to communicate with the external world or the partners over the internet, mpls circuit, or whatever. But we need a communication from one local premises to the another local premises towards the outside. It's not like everyone is logged in a room and no one is allowed inside and the outside. We need a communication, but we need a secure communication. Okay. So what is first thing comes in your mind when you need when you heard about the term connection outside, right? It's the internet, right? So internet is a resource which uh, transport sorry, it's not a resource, it's a transport which we use to connect towards the outside world. So we need an internet link. Internet link is connected over the internet gateway. Okay. So we will use this internet gateway. Then what comes in your picture? We have a concept called the firewall placement and types of the firewall. So in this video, I'm more talking about the two type of a firewall: perimeter firewall and internal firewall. So perimeter firewall is a first line of a defense. Okay, so it's a position after the router, and it is a first line of a defense. Then we have an internal firewall that is placed after the perimeter firewall. We will use the perimeter firewall for the DMZ connection, right? And we will place over all these switches servers under the DMZ, which is supposed to uh, expose to the outside world, like a web servers or FTP servers, right? So these are the DMZ servers which are exposed to the external world, or someone sitting over here and want to access this DMZ server, right? So they are in the DMZ zone. We have internal servers. They are not exposed to the external world, right? In some scenario, it could be exposed to the external world, but that's through the VPN connection, right? We have some partners. We don't have it's like open to the everyone, exposed to the everyone, but we have some partners or the clients who want to access this internal servers. In that case, In that case, we will have the traffic coming from the IPsec, right? So that is why we are having the VPN gateway over here. We can also use the VPN gateway over here, but we are using over the VPN gateway on the this firewall, on the perimeter firewall. It depends on the design, and it depends on the what kind of a router we are using as an internet gateway, right? If the internet gateway is a normal router, it's not a, we can use a Juniper SRX which act as a firewall also. In that case, you can use a VPN gateway over here. But if that is a normal router that's perform the basic L3 functionality, in that case you will choose a VPN gateway on the perimeter firewall itself, right? So if a client, if I have some client, right, let me find some client. Or some laptop, right, sitting over here, right? So we have some client sitting in outside world. He want to access a server in the DMZ, right? So he will go to the internet. Once he will go to the internet, then it comes to the internet gateway, right? From the internet gateway, it will go to the perimeter firewall. From the perimeter firewall, it will go to the DMZ server, and from there DMZ zone, and from there DMZ zone we have a DMZ server, right? So we are using a DMZ switch over here. And why we are using a DMZ switch over here? Because we will not connect the servers, DMZ servers directly on the firewall, right? So that's not works in the practical situation scenario. We will have a DMZ switch between the firewall and the server, and we will connect it. You can also have a load balancer, right? Instead, so if you have a HTTPS servers or the other servers which are exposed to the external world for the users, right? So in that case, you can have a load balancer which will give the resiliency of these servers, right? If you have three servers over here, then it will load balance it and give the resiliency to the application. uh, so we can connect the load balancer also over here to the DMZ switch, right? This load balancer can act as a HTTPS SSL offloading also. So we will discuss something later what is an SSL offloading in detail. It will do an SSL offloading. So usually we have a traffic from the HTTPS. It will break the traffic into HTTP plus S. So load balancer will do the SSL offloading, so that we can have less stress on these servers. It can do SSL offloading. Then load balancer can also act as a WAF. That is a application firewall, right? It can also act as a WAF for the layer 7 applications like the SQL injection, cross-site scripting. Okay. Now what we have, we could have some of the clients sitting over the uh, like as a partner, and they want VPN connection, right? That's a VPN traffic. So VPN traffic will use the internet gateway, comes to the VPN gateway, and from VPN gateway it will comes to the DMZ switch. But the same VPN gateway, the remote user or the partner want to access some of the internal application, then it will go to the VPN gateway, which is a perimeter firewall. Then from the VPN gateway, it will go to the internal network. So the traffic would like goes something like, it will make a tunnel over here. Then the traffic will flow like this, and it will access the internal connection, right? So this is why we are calling as an internal firewall. These okay. If a client want to, if there's a client sit on the internal network want to access an internet, then it will take a blue path. After blue path, it will go to the green path, right? Then it will go to the VPN gateway. Then from the VPN gateway, it could go to the internet gateway, right? So it is accessing an internet. We can also have the concept called SSL decryption, right? So you can use an SSL decryption on this firewall or on this firewall. It's depend on your designing, but what is your best design where you will use the SSL decryption? You can just think over it and comment on the video. So where you will use an SSL decryption? SSL decryption, correct? Everyone is nowadays talking about the next generation firewall. So which firewall we will use a next generation firewall? Should we use both of the perimeter as an internal firewall as a next generation firewall, or should we use the firewall one as a perimeter firewall as a next generation firewall, or should we use a firewall two as a next generation firewall? So what are the properties of the core features of the next generation firewall? One is a D packet inspection, right? Then there's an IPS, then UTM, Unified Threat Management, Zero Trust Security, right? SSL decryption, encryption. So these are the major features or the core features of the next generation firewall. Either we are going to use all these licenses, or we are going to use the limited licenses. That depends, right? But we need to think over it where you are going to use this next generation firewall, or and on the, as per as my understanding, if you have a running low on the cost, we will use the one as a perimeter firewall, one as a next generation firewall, and firewall two as a normal conventional firewall. But if you have a good budget, it's all about the money. If you have a good budget, then we will use the firewall two also as a next generation firewall, right? SSL decryption, correct. Now it's an internet gateway. What kind of a routers we are going to use on the internet gateway? That is something which also we need to choose, whether we are going to use something like the mm, normal L3 Cisco routers, or we are going to use something with a more security function like some Juniper SRX. Right. So these are all the small bets we need to understand when we are designing the small data center. Until unless we don't have a concept of the designing or how the traffic flows, we could not design or troubleshoot the big data center. It is start with the small bits and pieces. I have got a 13 years of experience, but still I personally also face a lot of this kind of an issue, uh, 2 years or 3 years back. Right, I don't understand how this firewall connect with each other. Where was the placement of the firewall? Right, what are the, you are going to connect with an SSL offloading, WAF, how you are going to the load balancer, how many switches do you need in the DMZ, right? Internal switch. So these are all the things we need to understand while designing the data center or designing network in which we have a firewall, right? So it's always security is one of the concern for the customer. A secure network is a everyone want to go with a secure network, and they are going to spend a good amount of money also. So it's our job with with the proper budgeting, we come with a solution to the customer so that we can protect their network. If you have more good, I'm not talking about the resiliency point of view. Resiliency could be we can have a dual router, we can have a dual switch, that is something else. But if you have more good idea of the how we can design this network, right, we can have a discussion like this switch. Can we have, is it a good to have this single switch for this DMZ and for the perimeter firewall or the internal firewall, or do we need a two switches, or one will connect to the perimeter firewall and one will connect to the internal firewall? We don't want any communication between them. What is your point of view, right? But in that case, in some cases we need a communication from the internal to the DMZ zones, right? Instead of just going from outside, what you will prefer? If this is a server, this is the internal, and you want to talk to this DMZ network, right? Then how it will go? It will go to the blue to the green, right? Then green to red. Not from green to black. Then it will go to the outside and then come back. It will go to the blue to the green to the red, right? So that is what we have to design the network, where we have a security, where we have a route or path optimization, where we have a low latency, right? It's all about the basic understanding of designing. Once you will have a basic understanding of the designing, then we can go with the next level, right? Whether you are connecting with the Cisco Nexus switches or ACI or in the cloud, but this is a basic fundamental of how the firewalls work. Okay, thank you.